What did we learn at the NFL Combine, and how might that sway some critical upcoming Giants decisions? We have all that and more coming your way next here on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all of our written work. And we've been really busy over there covering all aspects of the Combine, so do check that out. And as always, welcome on in to my Blue Crew community members, my everydayers, my newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And today's episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Giant fans, we got a lot to talk about today. The NFL Combine, as I record this, is wrapping up, and I'm gonna give you some takeaways, some little nuggets, things that I think are going to happen for the Giants, or I think the direction they want to go in. We'll break it down into segments. We'll talk about this Aaron Rodgers report and just how serious this might be. We'll talk about the potential of the Giants trading up in the first round, or might they trade down? And then we'll talk about the quarterbacks in general, as well as some miscellaneous tidbits that I had for you. So that's today's show. Again, welcome on in to everybody. Thank you for being part of it. All right, let's get into it. All right, Aaron Rodgers. First reaction I had when I heard that Rodgers is not his camp. I don't want to say it was his camp, but I believe that it might be, somebody who is friendly with him. I don't know if it was his agent or whatnot, but, just keep in mind something, folks. Rodgers, as far as I know, was not given permission by the Jets to contact other teams officially. So any reports you might have heard about there being an offer on the table for Rodgers are not true. There can't be any offers on the table. Otherwise, the Giants get nailed for tampering. That being said, yes, it is true that these agents sit in the back rooms with GMs, and they might be discussing one client, but hey, maybe they represent another guy who's just still under contract, and there's an interest gauged, if you will. It goes on all the time at the Combine. So it does not surprise me that Rodgers, there might have been an inquiry made by the Rodgers camp to the Giants. Now, what my understanding is of that situation, the Giants right now, they are exploring all options. But that being said, they have kind of stacked the options now that Matthew Stafford, which was their top option, by the way, Matthew Stafford obviously out of the picture. So the Giants have kind of stacked the options, if you will. And Aaron Rodgers, as I understand it, is not exactly high up on the list of options. He is on the list, but not high up on the list. He's more of an emergency, a contingency plan, if you will, if some of these other options don't play out. Now, it's interesting when the news came out about Rodgers potentially being interested in the Giants. A lot of, I think a lot of people were split. Some people are like, no, don't want him. Some people are like, yeah, go get him. Folks, my feeling on the situation is this. I would rather the Giants go in a different direction. Rodgers last year had a semi-decent offense around him. I think maybe other than the offensive line, which I think had some injuries and some issues there. And his numbers just declined. He had injury issues. And look, if the Giants are going to sign a veteran bridge quarterback, it's a good bet that they'll probably sign that guy for at least 2 years. So, Rodgers, he's probably not going to come cheap, I would think. Now, I don't think he would come at $50 million per year, which is what Matthew Stafford reportedly was looking to get. but Rodgers isn't going to be cheap. And there was also another report that he wants to bring, Devontae Adams, who's expected to be released by the Jets, with him. No, I don't want any part of that potential circus. Rodgers in his day, very good quarterback. He's declined. If he's going to come in here and he's going to start, making demands of what he wants and who he wants and all that stuff, Giants aren't going to put up with that. I'm going to tell you that right now. I don't see them putting up with that. I don't care how desperate Joe Shane and Brian Daboll are to win games. Rodgers is not going to, if he comes here, he's not going to get away with that. So I don't think Rodgers is a viable option for this team. He is an option, but at the very bottom of the list, towards the bottom of the list, for the reasons that I mentioned. The guys, and I'll talk more about this in the third segment, but some of the guys for Veteran Bridge that I think they're going to look at would include Jimmy Garoppolo with the Rams. They also might take a look at Russell Wilson, who I don't believe the Steelers are going to retain. I think the Steelers want to keep Justin Fields. I don't think the Giants are going to connect with Sam Darnold. I don't sense there's a big interest there. I'm just trying to think who else is available. If Kirk Cousins became available, I think maybe they would kick the tires on him, but not to trade for him. So yeah, there are some options out there, but the Giants, here's the thing. I think a lot of it is going to depend on what they want to do in the draft. And I say that because, look, if they say we are locked in on Cam Ward, I'm just using this as an example. We are locked in on Cam Ward. We feel Cam Ward can be potentially ready to start full time by, let's say, week 9. Let's say week 9. The Giants are probably not going to want to sign a guy like Rodgers, who they're going to have to sign to a minimum 2-year deal and then have to pay him, because if he's going to want guaranteed money, it's possible he could want, I don't know what he wants, but it's possible he's going to want to be paid, obviously, a competitive rate. That's not a good use of future salary cap space. So if you feel, you've got a chance at Cam Ward, if he's your guy, you sign a cheaper veteran option that you really just need to kind of step in for 6, 7, 8 games and then turn the keys over to the rookie. So that's kind of the decision the Giants have to weigh when they look at these veteran quarterbacks. Now, can they do that with a Jimmy Garoppolo? Absolutely. Jimmy shouldn't cost them a ton of money. What about Russell Wilson? Russell Wilson probably won't cost them a ton of money either. But the drawback with Russell Wilson is that he's kind of limited in terms of, what he's able to do. And I don't know if he's necessarily the best fit for the Giants offense. So these are all decisions. And right now, nothing has been decided other than they are going to get a veteran bridge. Joe Shane basically said that is their preference. I do not know for sure if they're going to draft the quarterback. I do think they will. And I'll talk about that in the next segment. And, just try and rebuild that shattered quarterback room because it's a mess right now. And I can tell you that they really had their heart set on Matthew Stafford. And when they didn't get him, the word I got was that there was a lot of disappointment because the Giants did make a competitive offer for Matthew Stafford. But at the end of the day, Stafford just wanted to stay home with the Rams and continue working with, what they had started there. So you move on. All right. So bottom line, if it's up to me, I say no to Aaron Rodgers. Let another team maybe look into him. But again, it depends on what the Giants end up doing as far as their rookie class and what their plan and their trajectory plan is, which is why, the combine was so important, why these upcoming pro days are going to be important, why the top 30 visits are going to be important to really kind of get a sense of where these, prospective quarterbacks are and how soon realistically can they be ready based on whatever flaws they have in their game that they need to, get caught up on or fix, I should say, to be successful in this Giants offense. All right, coming up next, trade up or trade down. What should the Giants do, or should they just stay put? We'll talk about the different scenarios, the rumors, and what I think they're going to do. That's coming up right after this. Hey, Giant fans, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game so that even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. The app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and coming up this week, yep, we're still 5 days a week, folks. Pretty soon free agency is going to roll around. There's going to be a lot to talk about. But the plan for this week is I'm hoping to get a few guests on to talk, to give their perspective of, what went down at the combine, their takeaways and whatnot, because it's always good to get different opinions on the show. So I'm working to see if I can't get a few people to come on and give their perspectives. All right, let's talk about trades. Now, swirling at the combine, because Joe Schoen pretty much said this, which I expected him to say, quite honestly, is they haven't ruled out trading up. They haven't ruled out trading back. They haven't ruled out staying put at number 3. What makes the most sense? Well, I don't think the Cleveland Browns, I don't get the sense that the Cleveland Browns are willing to move. They have the number 2 pick. The Titans, as we all know, have said that they might be open for business if they get the right offer. So what is the right offer? Well, I saw a report, and I think it was, I want to say North Jersey had the report, that potentially 2 second-round picks might be the starting point for the Giants to move up to number 1 with the Titans. I think that's kind of low. I think if you're the Titans, you're rebuilding, you want to get the best possible package. And if the Las Vegas Raiders, who also need a quarterback, by the way, want to move up, they will have to give up a little bit more than the Giants, because the Raiders, I believe, are drafting 6th. So it's going to cost them more to move up than it will the Giants. And if, the Giants put an offer on the table, the Raiders put an offer on the table, if you're the Titans, you take the Raiders offer. You also probably are going to ask for next year's number 1, which I don't think the Giants should give up under any circumstances. There's good quarterbacks in this draft, but nobody that you can honestly sit there and say, yeah, this guy is definitely a sure thing. So I don't think the Giants are going to trade up. I could be wrong here, but the impression I got is, as of right now, I don't think they're going to trade up. Now, could that change based on who they land in free agency? And, maybe like I said, maybe they get a guy who they think is a temporary fill-in, a guy that, they can get by with for 5-6 games, and then they need to plug in another quarterback, the rookie quarterback. It's possible. But it's also possible that the Giants maybe trade down to pick up some additional picks, because apparently the second tier group of quarterbacks had a good workout, a good showing at the combine. That's the group that includes Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Kyle McCord, Will Howard, and a few other guys. So if you're the Giants, does it make more sense to trade down? Remember, I've said before on this program, Joe Schoen said that there's about 6 or 7 guys that they like. So maybe you trade down. If, let's say, the Titans trade and Cam Moore goes off the board, maybe the Jets want to trade up to the Giants 7, with the Giants. The Jets are at 7, the Giants are at 3. Maybe the Raiders want to swap places. It all depends on how the board falls, but you trade down, you see if you can get next year's number one from the team that you're trading with. And then, you see what additional picks you get this year. And then, oh, by the way, take some of those picks to trade back into the bottom of the first round, because Shane also said when he spoke to the media, he said, look, ideally you want to get a quarterback in here on, on that contract where you get the 5th year. That's what I believe they want to do. So trading down would make sense. I think more sense than staying put at 3, unless, there's just a guy they got to have. Travis Hunter, is he that guy? Could be. Could they maybe say, nah, we're going to pass on Travis Hunter and we're going to roll the dice with Abdul Carter, who, it was determined or discovered, I should say, that he has that foot injury that they're hoping will heal itself and he won't need surgery. That's a possibility. Could they go in a different direction? Could they take a wide receiver or, I don't know, a safety or an offensive lineman, better yet, which, build from the inside out like we've been talking about? That's all a possibility, but I don't know. I know I'm probably in the minority here, but I don't feel like the Giants are going to trade up right now. Now, might I change my mind as we go through free agency and the rumor mill starts to really crank up? Sure. But just coming off the combine, my gut feeling is I don't think it's a slam dunk that the Giants trade up. I don't think it makes sense to trade up unless you are absolutely positively convinced that Cam Ward is your guy or Shedeur Sanders is your guy and there's no questions asked. All right. I'm not concerned, by the way. I know some people had contacted me on social media. They said, well, why are they going to trade up and then sit the guy? They should start him right away. Folks, I'm not concerned with that. If a rookie's got to sit for a year, heck, Patrick Mahomes did it. Eli Manning did it. Guys do it. And then on the flip side, you get the Jaden Daniels of the world. You get the Bo Nixes of the world where they come right in and they start and they have success and boom, everything's hunky-dory at least for rookie season. I think I have said all along, this was the plan last year for the Giants. I believe it is the plan this year. If they get a rookie quarterback, that kid's going to sit, at least initially, until he's ready. And that could also depend, like I said before, on who the veteran is. If they get a guy who they feel can win them games and not just, was a temporary fill-in, a guy that, if you need him to fill in for you for a week or two, you can get by, but you don't want to have him for the long term, then, it's a different story. So bottom line, I'm probably wrong on this. And if I am, I am, but I don't think the Giants are going to trade up. So, we'll see. I don't think it makes sense to trade up, but there's just so many variables right now in terms of, do they really, really, really like Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward? Or are they, happy with the second tier of quarterbacks in this class, which I believe is the case. So they basically want to get themselves options is where I'm going with this. So we'll see how that plays out. And it's going to be interesting to see if things change, but we'll follow it along, obviously, as we do, as we go through the daily shows here on the Locked On Giants podcast. All right. Coming up next, we'll talk a little bit more about quarterbacks and some other nuggets from the combine. That's right after this. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and as always, thank you for joining me. All right, we're talking about the combine, takeaways, thoughts, nuggets, all kinds of good stuff. Hopefully, you're enjoying the show. And one little piece of info that came about from the combine, really shouldn't be surprised with this, but I kind of am, but I'm not. And that is, credit to Tony Pauline, by the way, of Sportskeeda, as he reported it. Quite honestly, I should have picked it up because Joe Shane did touch on it, but I kind of, I don't want to say glossed over it, but didn't really visit with it. And that is the Giants are expected to be active in the free agent guard market. Now, I go back to what Shane said at the combine. He said, we have 4/5 of our starting offensive line set. The one position that is not set is right guard. Greg Van Roten is a unrestricted free agent. They did say that they would, visit with him, see if maybe they could work something out. But let's be honest, folks. Van Roten's getting up there in age. Maybe they might want to go with a little younger prospect there, somebody who they could have there for a few years. All right. So the Giants are expected to be active in the guard market. Now, this is interesting because I have been saying that the Giants need to start drafting offensive linemen, put them in the pipeline, get them ready so that when guys leave, you have young talent ready to step in. They still don't have that apparently because, if they go and they sign a guard, which by the way makes sense because if you think about it, last year they took the veteran approach with the offensive line, and until the injuries started happening, that offensive line did pretty well. So it kind of makes sense to keep with that philosophy if you get the right guy in. But you've got to also have talent that's in development. So they have Jay Kubas, who I think I know they're cross-training him to play center. Maybe just not there yet. They have Joshua Azudu, who, just for whatever the reason hasn't panned out. Part of that, I think, is because they moved him to tackle, where I don't know what they were thinking, to be honest with you. He's just not a tackle, but the consistency factor has been missing from his game. And then you have Evan Neal. Now, I believe Evan Neal will get cross-trained at guard this year, assuming he's healthy. I think that was the plan last year until he had the setback with his ankle, coming off the ankle surgery, and they had to just roll with him at tackle. But, if they go and they sign a veteran guard, which I think is a real possibility, then I believe Evan Neal potentially becomes the swing tackle that they need. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I still say Evan Neal's best interest down the line is at guard, but, I don't get paid to make that decision. That's up to the coaching staff to make that decision. But look, you're going to bring in a new quarterback. Presumably you're going to bring in a rookie quarterback. You want to fix that offensive line. You want to make sure that offensive line is as solid as it can be, because that was the mistake, one of the many mistakes they made when they drafted Daniel Jones. The offensive line just wasn't good. And we all saw what happened. And I don't care who the quarterback is. If that quarterback is standing back there and he's got in the back of his mind, oh my God, I'm going to get hit, he's going to be reluctant to throw the long ball, uncork some deep passes, and it's going to be a disaster. So hopefully the Giants have learned from that mistake. And that's why I think, going the veteran route makes sense. Now, another interesting thing, this isn't really related to the Giants. It kind of is, but it's not. And that's edge rusher, where, Abdul Carter of Penn State is considered like the cream of the crop for that group. But as I mentioned, his medicals at the combine revealed, I think they call it a stress reaction or something like that. I think that's what they called it, in his foot. Didn't need surgery, should be fine, but, that becomes a concern, I think. So a prospect, and you guys might think I'm crazy for saying this, but hear me out on it. If they're not re-signing Azeez Ojulari, and it doesn't look like they're going to, what about if the Giants were to maybe look at Chase Young? Remember the Chase Young Bowl? And I think it was in 2020, and the Giants lost out to them, and they had to settle for Andrew Thomas. Horrors. And then, Chase Young, of course, went to Washington, and then I think he got traded to the 49ers, and I think he was most recently with the Saints. Chase Young has had some injury issues, but you know what? He's still relatively young. I think he's only 25 or going to be 26 on his next birthday. And he should be relatively inexpensive. So if you need another pass rusher, because you're not going to keep Azeez Ojulari. And again, I don't think that they will. Why not kick the tires on Chase Young? I don't think he's going to return to the Saints. So if he hits the market, you can probably get him at a reasonable price. And that would maybe eliminate the need for, or any concern you might have about an Abdul Carter. So now maybe you say, okay, you know what? Why don't we look at a Travis Hunter? Why don't we look at, one of the receivers, or, a young offensive tackle that we can get ready? So you have options, or defensive lineman, better yet. Again, build from the inside out. So, if you could pull that off, if you're the Giants, I think you'll get off to a pretty good start. And, every year, the Giants, there's a surprise that they pull, all right? Whether it's because somebody falls into their lap that nobody was expecting because, that person got cut by a team, or the Giants go and they make a move and we're like, what are they thinking? Or, wow. So again, that happens every year with this team. I would not be surprised if that happens again with this team, because I've said this many times. The Giants don't necessarily see their needs the way you and I do. The Giants don't necessarily view prospects the way you and I do. We can make educated guesses, but sometimes they see things a little bit differently than we do. So, edge rusher is some position that I would keep an eye on, especially, if they could get a guy like Chase Young on a 2-year deal. Now you've got Burns under contract. They're going to probably pick up Kayvon Thibodeau's rookie year, his option year on his rookie deal. You get Chase Young on a 2-year deal. That's a pretty good threesome, pass rushing threesome. I would not hate that. So we'll see if that plays out. But in conclusion, I remain convinced the Giants are going to go defensive line in the draft. I think cornerback, even if they go for a Travis Hunter, I still think the Giants will go and look to get a veteran. The other position that I think maybe they might want to look into, going back to the offensive line depth at center, because, they need more out of John Michael Schmitz. He's progressing, but they need a lot more out of his game. And right now, I think they have Austin Schlottman under contract. Like I mentioned before, Jake Kubas is cross-training. They need, in my opinion, to maybe look to upgrade and have somebody really solid there, just in case, especially since Schmitz has had some injury issues in his first 2 seasons. So that all being said, I'll just make sure I didn't leave anything out from my notebook. Nope, I think I covered everything. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Giants. Again, thank you for spending part of your day with us here, and we'll be back tomorrow with an all-new episode of the Locked On Giants podcast.